How you doing? Good morning. This is March 15, Tuesday, 2022. The time is 5 minutes past 9 o'clock. The Insurance Committee of the Tennessee House of Representatives of the 112th General Assembly is now called to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Representatives Carr, Sapicki, Freeman, Hawk, Hicks, Hodges, Johnson, Lafferty, Mitchell, Powers, Rudd, Terry, Thompson, White, Vice Chair Rudder, Chairman Kumar.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Members, do we have personal orders? Speaker Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hodges and I have a guest in the audience today. City Councilman Stacy Streetman, who represents Ward 10 in Clarksville. Welcome.
Any other orders? Seeing none, we will start our calendar. We have 10 items on the calendar, but item 4 and 5 are rolled 1 week. First item on the agenda. First item on the agenda is House Bill 1985 by Chair Lady Hazelwood. Don't see her. We will roll. Oh, Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And Lady Hazelwood has had some challenges getting to committees because of other obligations the last couple of weeks. This is the annual Coverage Assessment Act for hospitals. We've worked on this for several years. It's a substantial investment that hospitals are willing to make and draws down about $600 million in terms of state revenue in order to draw down $1.2 million in federal revenue. And with that, we do have an amendment, drafting code 014418, that will help us make the bill, Chairman and members.
Motion and second on the amendment. I think we can attach the amendment, but you have already explained it. Without objection, we are voting on attaching amendment 014418 to House Bill 1985. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment goes on the bill. Chairman Hawk, you recognized.
Thank you. And the chair lady has arrived if we do need her to work on the legislation any further. But the bill is really as we the bill is as we have explained it. It has become customary, and it's certainly something that substantially adds to our budget. It helps us care for citizens. So in a nutshell, that's where we are, Mr. Chairman and members.
Question's been called. Without objection, we are voting on House Bill 1985. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bill moves on to Finance. Thank you, Chair Lady, for coming. Things are in good order. Item number 2 is House Bill 1134 by Chairman Farmer. We have a motion and second. Chairman Farmer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Committee. It's great to be here this morning. What this legislation does, it raises the minimum property damage limits for your vehicle from $15,000 to $25,000. That gets us to where the surrounding states are. Of course, that's not why we do things here, because other people do it. But what this does is keeps up the inflation, keeps up with the price of parts and cars and everything that just went up dramatically here recently. So I think it's a good piece of legislation. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Seems reasonable. Members, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we are voting on House Bill 1134. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, House Bill 2347 by Chairman Boyd. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized on House Bill 2347.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of Committee. House Bill 2347 is a request for a study to be conducted by the Comptroller, the Tennessee Department of Health, and TennCare to study the effects of temporary staffing agencies with regard to long-term care facilities. As you know, the cost of labor has gone up in almost every sector of the economy, but it has hit particularly hard in the medical industry. And so there's oftentimes a shortage of medical professionals, particularly nurses, and the cost has gone up drastically when using medical staffing agencies. And so they've asked that a study be done to this, and a lion's share of this is being burdened by TennCare and ultimately the state of Tennessee. Mr. Chairman, I will take any questions.
Well, thank you. I think it's an important matter that needs to be studied. But how would the study help us to plan budgeting in the future? You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that TennCare, all these different state agencies, and the long-term care facilities would just like to get an idea of what does it actually cost now, and to have a temporary nurse work, and just on average, what is that cost, and how much of that is being driven up by these staffing agencies versus what it would cost organically if they just worked in the nursing home.
Thank you. Representative Thompson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you bringing this because I'm quite familiar with. I have friends who work in nursing homes and assisted living, and I've heard about some of the problems. Will we be able to, how will the results of this study be conveyed to us? I mean, will we all get a copy of this, or will it?
You
Or-
recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, the comptroller will deliver the report to the Speaker of the Senate, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Legislative Library no later than January the 1st of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we are voting on House Bill 2347. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman of the Committee.
Item 4, House Bill 2840 is rolled 1 week. Item 5, House Bill 2862 is also rolled 1 week. Item 6, House Bill 2051 by Representative Love. We have a motion and second. Representative Love, you're recognized on House Bill 2051.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. House Bill 2051 seeks to increase the amount of time that women are given postpartum coverage from 60 days to 12 months. I think it's a very important subject, and I think we all would agree that it's important to allow women to have this amount of coverage to help them as they adjust after childbirth. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will be here for questions.
We do have an amendment, 14780.
Yes, sir.
May I have a motion and second? We have a motion and second. We are voting to attach amendment 14780 to House Bill 2051. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The amendment goes on the bill. Now, as amended, you have described the bill. Members, do we have questions? Chairman Hawk, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Leader Love, thank you very much. This is such a great idea that it's already in the governor's budget, and we funded it last year on a pilot program, funding it this year on a pilot program, and the next year as well. I'm optimistic. So, essentially, what we're doing, we're looking at taking what we've got now as a non-recurring program in terms of dollars, and would be looking at making it recurring. So, this is certainly a policy issue that the legislature has supported. It'll just be a decision as to whether we can recognize it in the budget document in the next committee where you'll go in terms of being recurring or non-recurring. But I think this is something that the legislature as a family, as a whole, we certainly support and have really put our money where our mouths are in terms of funding it already in this year's budget.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we are, okay. Chairman Lafferty, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of those bills that, everybody likes to do what they can for moms, postpartum, pregnant, wherever they can. I've got a mom. I'd do anything I could for her. I am curious, how does this affect, if I've got a small business with a small insurance policy, how does that affect me, this bill?
It depends on if your employees are on TennCare, I believe, because I think this applies just to TennCare enrollees.
Okay, so if I'm just a small business and I've got private health insurance for my family, then I don't get any kind of benefits out of this. But could my insurance premiums be affected by this some way?
I don't think so, but I'll defer to legal about that because, again, this just deals specifically with TennCare enrollees, I believe. And I'll, with Mr. Chairman's permission, defer to legal to respond to.
I'll withdraw the question. It's all right. Thank you.
Well, I think we're curious. It'll be interesting to know. That's okay. We'll go out of the session. Let legal answer it if you don't mind. We are out of session.
Zach Brown, Office of Legal Services. Chairman Love, you're correct. This does only apply to TennCare.
Thank you.
And
back
so in that
in
instance,
session.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So in that instance, it would not affect you if you had employees with private insurance because it would not drive up your insurance costs. This just covers TennCare enrollees. And so if you have an employee that's on TennCare, they would get the extra coverage, and it still would not drive up your own insurance costs of your business with private insurance coverage.
Well, in a way, it does affect every taxpayer, but again, this is a good thing to do, and we do pay for needed matters in the society. Any other questions? Seeing none, we are voting on House Bill 2051. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Kindly record your no answer with the clerk if you want to be so recorded. The ayes have it. The bill goes on to finance, although it has been financed.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. And I also want to thank now Senator Lamar. This was her legislation, and she asked me to carry it. And so I want to thank her for her leadership on this. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this. Next is item number 7, House Bill 1924 by Mr. Deputy Speaker Johnson. We have a motion and second. Speaker Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1924 renews the annual nursing home bed assessment, which expires on June 30th, 2022. This assessment provides about 1/3 of the revenue needed to fund nursing home reimbursements.
You've heard the explanation, members. Do you have any questions? Seeing none, the question's been called. Without objection, we are voting on House Bill 1924. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The bill passes and moves on to finance. Next is item number 8, House Bill 1772 by Chairman Powers. We have a motion and second. Is Chairman Powers here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
There is an amendment following the bill, 014845.
We have a motion and second on the amendment. Without objection, we are voting on amendment 14844. No.
14845.
14845, attaching to House Bill, is it 1772?
1772, yes.
All those in favor of attaching the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment goes on the bill. Chairman Powers, you're recognized on the amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is amended to clarify the licensing requirements for individual marketing Medicare products, such as Medicare Advantage or Medicare Part D. It makes no change to the current law and simply codifies the current practice. It clarifies that licensing of Medicare marketing representatives is governed by federal regulation without additional state regulation. Marketing in our industry is defined as educational and informational. So it makes no changes to the current law that, by the federal regulation. And with that, I renew my motion.
Well, members, you've heard the explanation. Any questions? Seeing none, without objection, we are voting on House Bill 1772. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The bill moves on to calendar and rules. Item 9, House Bill 2225.
Second.
Chairman Powers, you're recognized. We also have an amendment on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment following this one is 014844.
We have a motion and second on amendment 014844 to be attached to House Bill 2225. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment goes on the bill. Chairman Powers, you're recognized on the amended bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2225 changes the current law so that the commissioner shall not consider a prior misdemeanor or a Class E felony only if the individual was charged but not convicted, if either offense occurred more than 10 years before the date upon which an individual submitted an application for a license. As an insurance agency owner, I understand how difficult it is to find qualified candidates today. This will help agencies hire people who are qualified, made a mistake a long time ago, and deserve a second chance. With that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
We heard the explanation, members. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we are voting on House Bill 2225. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
Next, number 10 on our list today is House Bill 2851 by Chairman Kumar. Chairman Kumar, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members, this is Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. As you know, our physical, mental, psychological, physiological, and so many other traits are the result of a grand genetic lottery. Some of us draw the short end of the chromosome. Good, good. I'm glad I'm glad you're with me. Well, with the human genome having been mapped, our deepest secrets of genetic constitution can now be revealed. This creates the possibility that such information can lead to discrimination in insurance writing and rates based on our on commercial considerations. In anticipation of this, the state of Tennessee does have existing statute that prohibits such discrimination in writing and rates for health insurance. House Bill 2851 adds life insurance and long-term care insurance to the same statute. I realize that at this time there are conflicting forces and how the commerce and industry want to work this problem out, and legislative fixes are rather early in the game. But it is a matter that is coming with the great developments in genetics and science that we should definitely have on mind. With that in mind, I bring this bill basically for discussion. I don't think we are ready to vote on it, so members, you can relax and just enjoy the discussion. With that, Madam Chair, if it is suitable to you, we do have testimony from the industry about their thinking on this matter.
Thank you, Chairman Kumar. So we will go out of session. We will bring up our guest. Please turn your mic on and identify yourself and your agency for us. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning. I'm Benjamin Sanders with Farm Bureau Insurance.
Good morning. I'm Mandy Young, here on behalf of the American Council of Life Insurers. We thought we'd give you a little education on genetic testing and how life insurance works. And Tennessee Farmers, being one of the largest writers here, is going to speak more specifically to the rating of an individual. But life insurance is different than health insurance in that you will complete an application at the time of buying health insurance, and you will sign a consent form, at the time of life insurance, and you will sign a consent form for that application so that the life insurance company can get your medical records. So it is with full consent that the individual signs that form. So let me step back for a second and explain that life insurance is about your health at the time that you apply. And after that, you will not be re-rated except for a cost of living increase that applies to all of those in your insurance pool. So unlike health insurance or other kinds of insurance, you won't be re-rated for your health every year. So it's important for companies to know what your health conditions are so they can understand your life expectancy and rate you accordingly. So American Council of Life Insurers wants to work with Chairman Kumar, and we most appreciate his asking us to speak today so that we can continue to educate you about genetic testing. And many of the states that have looked at this issue have been more focused on the 23andMe type of genetic test. And at this time, the life insurance industry does not use that kind of genetic testing. We will only ever use a genetic test that is in your medical records as ordered by someone like a Dr. Kumar, and we have that with your consent. So I'm happy to answer questions, but Ben's going to talk a little bit more specifically about Farm Bureau life insurance.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you, Chairman Kumar, for the opportunity to discuss this. Life insurance is a bit different than other kinds of insurance. With auto, home, health insurance, most people agree they need it, and then they decide if they can afford it. Life insurance, certainly there are some that are going to buy it no matter what, but it's extremely price sensitive because there's not the urgent need for it like the other kinds of insurance. And because of that, as Mandy alluded to, getting the price right is critically important, both for the company, for the long-term sustainability of that pool of business, but to also make sure that that premium is at a point that is affordable to the people that need it. Our average, and I hate to correct Mandy, we are the largest writer of life insurance in Tennessee. And the reason I say that is because the vast majority of our members are in rural areas. They're very middle class, many of them farmers or work in the agriculture industry. They're not looking at life insurance as a way to transfer wealth. They're looking at life insurance as a way, if something happens to me, how does my family pay for college for the kids? Now, how does my spouse take care of themselves? How do we pay off the house? Those kind of things. And so because of that, we have to make sure that the price is something that is attractive to individuals. Our average life insurance policy is $110,000, which I think underlies the statement I just made about the reason that most of our members buy life insurance. When we look at different rating factors, and I'll compare to insurance scoring for auto and property, which is similar to credit scoring, sometimes we as the industry get pushback on that. They say people shouldn't be penalized for having bad credit or a bad insurance score. But we look at it the other way. We don't look at those rating factors as a way to increase the premiums. We look at them as a way to decrease the premiums. And genetic testing or genomics testing, either way, is an excellent example of that. Certainly, if genetic testing shows a higher risk for someone, that denotes a higher premium. But also, if it shows a lower risk, we're able to offer someone a lower premium that would hopefully incentivize people to buy more life insurance or to buy when they otherwise wouldn't have. This is also a very good example, and I believe Dr. Kumar alluded to this. We're at the front end of this curve of genetics testing. Most life insurance companies do not use this yet, but we certainly see the validity of it as time goes forward. I think it's a very good opportunity for the industry and for policymakers to work together to look at policies that both protect the underwriting flexibility for companies, as well as protect the privacy of individuals as they engage in these type of tests. And Dr. Kumar, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I might point out one difference. The law that Dr. Kumar was amending at first was passed in the 90s, before genetic testing was even thought of like it is today. And it was passed to ban the use of genetic testing by health insurers. It didn't want a health insurer to decide that Mark White has a disease and we're not going to insure you in our group at all. So it's a ban to use that, to ban you, to refuse to insure you. And that's a big difference because it's a health insurance policy and it's rated to cover your health conditions. So that's why it was banned. And the health insurance industry helped write it in the 90s to clarify it. So there's the amendment, or the bill that he had would have added life insurance and disability to that same section. And there is a difference between the coverages that are provided under health and life. So that's all, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is, I guess, directed toward Ben. When you do this genetic testing, will it apply to both term and life, whole life?
Presumably it could, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So right now, would it have any effect on the premiums for term, do you think?
It's a hypothetical because we don't use this kind of testing currently.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know any company that does. If a company started using it, It wouldn't affect any current premiums, whether term or whole life. It would only affect premiums for new policyholders going forward.
Okay, well, so I guess if you buy a term insurance for X amount of money and you get to that point and break, you brought it for 10 years or whatever, then you know in term, you're paying X amount of dollars, but then that next term it goes straight up the, would this help it any?
Potentially. Yes,
Potentially.
sir. Yes, sir. It could.
Because I see a lot of people that they, and of course, they buy what they want to, but they buy the term thinking, well, I'll buy 20 years of term and I'm still living. And the next thing you know, I'm going to continue my insurance, but then they cannot afford it because of term insurance is pretty expensive. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that out to see if that might help us get the, okay, Mandy, go ahead.
I was just going to comment, Representative Carr, that part of the reason it might be more expensive 20 years from now wouldn't be based on a genetic test. It's based on our age.
Yeah.
20 years later, we're closer to morbidity or some other major health condition. I don't want to comment on your age or my age, so we won't talk
I'm older
about
than
that.
you. I know it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just hoping maybe that if we did use this, even though I've crossed a threshold of 35, that you could look at that genetics and say, oh, well, his genetics and his family, I'm going to live to be, long time and maybe help that premium a little bit, especially on term.
If I can delve into another hypothetical.
Sure.
If there was a genetic test, and purely hypothetical, that could say with certainty that you won't die from a natural cause in 20 years. And so what then you would be insuring is an accidental death. Then your premiums, to your point, would be significantly lower because your risk would be significantly lower. I don't think we'll ever get to that level of genetics testing, but that's the principle I think you're suggesting, and it could certainly help with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Rudd, you are recognized.
So I guess what we're really saying here, if you can use genetic testing on life insurance, unlike health insurance, which is whatever your current condition is, it's really like a psychic. You're predicting the future. It's psychic helpline. It would be psychic helpline insurance, because just because someone's genetically inclined to have a certain condition or lifestyle, it still isn't dictated by that. Your lifestyle choices is what determines your life, how long you're going to live, what health you're going to be in, regardless of what your genetics is, because that's not always proper. You can't go with that. So to me, it would be, I think it would be extremely dangerous to use genetics to determine life insurance.
Representative Rudd, I hear what you're saying and understand that completely. I think part of it is that life insurance is different than health insurance. In that in life insurance, we are obtaining your medical records because we're trying to judge your condition as compared to Representative Sapicki, who's in the same pool, so that we get the rate right at the first time, because every year your rate's not going to change. Your health insurance rate or your car insurance rate or your homeowners will go up or down every year based on your health, based on the cost of medical inflation or a claim or the cost to fix a car. So those get re-rated every year. Life insurance does not.
May I add something, Representative Rudd? Also, rating factors for any kind of insurance are one of many factors. So if the life insurance industry started to engage in using this, it would only be one of a number of factors in determining that rate. Insurance uses the law of average. And of course, we try to hone down the risk for every individual as tight as we can, but it's still the pool that you're in, and the law of averages dictates that. I think that in our discussions with Dr. Kumar, the question that we've been discussing and that the industry has to discuss is, how do we use genetic testing, if the industry chose that way, in a way that's fair to the consumer, without the consumer being disadvantaged or hurt if, say, they ordered a DNA test from Ancestry.com or one of these things that's just interested in their background, but really wasn't intending to have any medical applicability to it. I think that's the underlying question that we've talked to Dr. Kumar about. And certainly that's going to be a question that both policymakers and the industry will be working on probably for the next several years.
Follow up.
Now, explain to me, right now, whether it's health or life, genetic information is not available, correct? Or
the state statute that is currently on the books only applies to health information, and it was passed in the 90s to ban the use of genetic testing to rate your health insurance policy. Life insurance companies, some are using genetic testing, but if they are, it's only when it's obtained in your medical records. So if Tim Rudd has never had a genetic test except a 23andMe, and you applied for life insurance, we wouldn't know about your genetic testing because it was with 23andMe, which is a direct-to-consumer genetic testing, and it wasn't part of your medical record. We only use, as one of the factors, your medical records, your age, your whether you're a smoker, some of that to rate you in life insurance, but we don't use a 23andMe genetic test. We don't buy that information from 23andMe as an industry. We only use it if it's part of your medical record and ordered by a doctor for some condition.
Now, what is the ultimate goal? What if we were going to vote on this today? What is the industry wanting?
Other states have regulated the life insurance industry's use of 23andMe and Ancestry.com. And we understand that could be because you don't want a consumer to take that test and then have their information sold without permission. In the life insurance area, from the way it's being handled now, it is only based on you signing a consent form to obtain your medical records. So you gave permission for us to get your medical records at the time of application, which helps us rate and put you in the right category for your rates going forward.
I guess I'm still trying to grasp what you're wanting the law outside of your health records, which you already can obtain.
This was Chairman Kumar's idea, Representative Rudd. It's not our bill, and we're just explaining what the industry is doing now.
Well, as far as in other states, what some states allow your non-medical records like your Ancestry.com, they allow that to be accessible to life insurance.
In the states where we've seen similar legislation moving, the goal is to protect consumers from a DNA test, an ancestry type test, from being used to rate your insurance. The perspective of the insurance industry, and as Mandy said, a few companies might be using this. I don't know of any in Tennessee that use genetic or genomic testing. What they are more looking at are the scientific tests, like the genomic test, which is different than a genetic test like an Ancestry.com. The genomic cancer testing, which is a fascinating science, by the way, that could be in your medical records. And a lot of people or their providers will pursue those kind of tests to determine their own risk for cancer so they can study their own lifestyle. You referred to that recently. Insurance companies want to make sure that if that type of situation is in your medical records, that we can then also use that as an underwriting tool, just like we can all the other medical records when you give consent at the beginning of the application, of course. Does that help, sir?
Well, not entirely. I guess there's one thing I'm still very concerned about, whether it be for your health records or your life insurance or any other insurance record, is that DNA and other genetic testing cannot properly predict what your health is going to be. It may say a certain defect or positive is in your genetic tract, but it's still up to your lifestyle choices in case. Now, like me, I'm diabetic, and my weight is fluctuated up and down, and my medicine also fluctuates my weight. And I know plenty of skinny people that are diabetic as well. And on average, heavier people outlive thinner people. Maybe because they're under more medical treatment, I don't know. But it's like meat eaters usually in studies live longer than vegetarians. But it all is about your lifestyle choices and your genetics, I think. So I would hate for any genetic or DNA information to be used for life insurance, because it would be, like I said, it would be like issuing insurance based on psychic abilities to predict what's going to happen in your future. And I don't think you can do that. But thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rudd. Next on the list is Representative Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for coming out today. one thing, and to go back to what Representative Rudd said, a lot of the things that we're doing in the insurance industry, we are actually predicting. I mean, that's part of that life insurance thing. We're actually taking statistical information and predicting how long you're going to live. And these actuaries are setting up in some office somewhere, and they're saying, based on your the best calculations that we can put together, they are kind of predicting how long you're going to live. And I don't want to know what their prediction is for me, but we do have to predict it when we sell life insurance. So it does kind of go back to that. One thing I want you all to do, and you kind of touched on it a minute ago, and just explain the difference between genetic and genomic testing, please. Either one of you.
I think we're going to pass that back to Chairman Kumar because he gave us examples yesterday that are way above my lawyer pay grade.
Okay. Can Chairman Kumar just kind of explain to the committee what the difference between those two are? Or we can wait till we go back into session.
Chairman Kumar, you're recognized.
Thank you. I think with the gene mapping performed with the Human Genome Project, it is possible for us to exactly outline which genes play what role towards a particular disease, as well as various physical characteristics and so on. And being able to do that, that is genomic testing based on the human genome. I'm not completely sure if genetic testing, I think it's used interchangeably. I'm not completely sure about the meaning of that, unless you know that and you're just testing us.
You're recognized.
No, I wouldn't do that. I have a pretty good idea, but I know we had used both of those terms, and it's a little bit different when you're looking at, as far as a predictor for future problems or whatever. So I just kind of wanted you to go over that and talk about what genomic and genetic testing was. But that I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Chairman White.
Thank you very much, Chair Lady. Just a thought, and correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, the way science always advances, we'll probably have to eventually deal with this with the study of genetics, genome. But it seems like the negative part would be we all benefit from the law of averages when we buy insurance, whether that be home, health, car, or even our life insurance. I'm in a certain age group, and so I get the law of averages on my side. Going down this road at some point, if I was on the short end of the genomic scale or genetic scale, as the chairman said, or the high end, then I would have a high policy or a low one, and I lose the law of averages. So would that be a true way of looking at it?
You go.
Most companies, sir, and I'm broad brushing, will take a rating factor and then assign a certain weight to it. And to your point, there can be a rating factor that might have a low weight or a high weight to it. And that's the case in all insurance. And you're exactly right. If we knew exactly what your risk was, then your premium would be the same price as your risk. But even today, in very established fields such as auto or home insurance, even if we can hone in very specifically, you are still in the pool. And to some degree, insurance companies realize that we can't significantly overcharge someone because of their risk, even if we know they're a tad bit higher risk. That's really not fair to the individual. And so those rating factors are assigned weights. I suspect that if companies started using genetic testing, that it would be the same thing. They would assign a certain weight to it. It wouldn't put you outside the pool.
And if I might, Chair Lady Rudder, I want to mention your law of averages, or the pool, is very important to sort of focus on. Is if all of you are buying life insurance today, you're all giving us what information through the medical records, and then we're going to rate you based on your age, your family history, because they ask those questions on the application, and the other things. Those rating factors are regulated by the Department of Commerce and Insurance, and they pool together so that actuarially, as Representative Powers noted, there's someone that looks to say, well, Mark White's this certain age, his chance of dying is higher than someone who's 30. And that's what the law of averages is trying to do, is to accept that pool and then have enough money to pay everybody's claims at the end. So, but there is no insurance company that we are aware of in the United States that requires a genetic test to get life insurance. That's a big difference than whether it's just part of your medical records or whether it's required. And no one at this point is requiring it because of many of the unknowns that Dr. Kumar has explained.
Next on our list is Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I may be just repeating questions that you guys have answered 15 times. We're going to do it again. But so my wife goes and gets genetic testing, and it shows that she has the BRCA gene. If this legislation passes, and that was in her medical records, would life insurance companies be able to see that the results of the BRCA testing?
If this legislation were to pass, they would get the medical records, see the BRCA gene testing, and not be able to use it to rate it.
Got it.
So that would be potentially problematic based on the rest of the pool. But they only would get that information, Representative Freeman, if your wife signed the consent form and applied for life insurance, and then we got her medical records. That is the only way right now life insurance companies would ever know about a genetic test.
You're recognized.
But the life insurance could deny if all the documents were not signed to cover life insurance, correct? So if you asked for all the medical records, or insurance companies asked for all the medical records, and she declined to sign over, she could be denied coverage.
That could be the case today, sir, if a company required medical records in order to issue a policy, regardless of what's in the records. If someone didn't submit them, they could do that, sir.
So I'd like to go back to my colleague's question earlier, and I'm not sure it was directly answered. As a representative from the industry, what is it that you would like to see? Do you want to be able to get the access to genetic testing or not?
If, Representative Freeman, to your question, if genetic or genomic testing advanced to the degree that the industry agreed that it's a legitimate underwriting tool, and that our regulators agreed that it's an acceptable underwriting tool, and we could use that to appropriately place people and appropriately rate individuals, we would hope to be able to use that as an underwriting tool. We're not there yet, by no means. I don't think the science is there yet either.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Do we have any further questions for our guest? Seeing none, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to close with a few points that we raised. Thank you for a good discussion. That was really the purpose of it. This is something we need to plan and think about what the future holds and where would like the industry to be, or where would we want the industry to be. One thing that stands out is that genetics is not absolute, and it's rather early in the game. It's not absolute because one of the most memorable studies is of 160 identical twins that were separated at birth. So their genes are identical templates, completely similar. But as they were separated at birth and then followed up 30 years later, it turns out that their intelligence, their behavior, their illnesses and diseases that they developed really depended on the circumstances, environment that they were exposed to. That played a heavier role than genes alone. Certainly, like the BRCA gene, now that's a given, but there were other factors involved. So it's the debate between nature versus nurture. Okay. So it's that debate is there, and nurture does play a very significant role. So we can't just take the genetic testing and say, okay, this is what the lifespan and diseases or the nature of the person is going to be. The other, as far as regulating availability of genetic information that we get on our own, like going to one of these companies, 23andMe, that I was given by the industry a bill that was passed in Utah, and it is genetic. To me, it was more, they banned the information from these, they banned these third-party companies from releasing the information to insurance companies without the person applying for insurance without their consent. So to me, it was Genetic Information Privacy Act. So it was GIPA, it was not GINA. And for that, probably, I think that may still be a good thing to do, but probably for that, already, I'm sure that these private companies have policies when you get testing done and you have control of your information, and it would probably not be released. Apart from that, I'm thankful for the discussion and the thoughts in it, and let us see what the next year or two brings, where industry goes, and where would we like the industry to go. And hopefully we will reach a point where good decisions can be made so that there is fairness in the any legislation and practice of insurance, as well as there is fairness in commerce, as well as how we treat people. If something is inherited, it's not that person's fault, and the society needs to take care of it. It's no different than a child born with major disabilities and how we take care of them. And I think that from that point of view, our society is a good society. We take care of people, and I think that similar moral standards should apply to insurance and inherited diseases that affect a person's longevity and their ability to get insurance. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Kumar. Are there any more questions for our guests? Seeing none, we'll go back into session. We do have one other question, I think, for Chairman Kumar, and that would be from Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Chairman. And so your intent today is, are we going to vote on this today? Is that your intent? No?
No, I told you declared in the beginning that at this time, we are not at a point that the certain things about this bill and legislation, or just the philosophical matters of how society should handle it, they're not completely worked out. So my plan was to take it off notice for now, but I thought the discussion will be helpful in helping us plan for the future.
Any more questions? Yes, follow up?
Thank you, Chairman. So I obviously would defer to you, but I would love to see us vote on this today. And while I understand your concerns that there are some unknowns, those same unknowns are on both sides. And as the science increases and gets better, we can reconsider those actions. But knowing today that the science is incomplete, and that insurance companies can use today from if they so choose, can use, to your own acknowledgement and to the questions, incomplete and potentially inaccurate information to increase or deny coverage, I think is extremely damaging to people. And as that science increases and improves, and we decide we would like to use genomic testing, we can reconsider actions. And so with that, I would, I don't know if I can make a motion or if you can reconsider your actions, but I'd like to make a motion for us to go ahead and vote on that bill. Do I have a second?
Chairman Kumar.
Thank you. I see your point, and I see that this is a matter that does need to be resolved. I just felt it was too early at this time to resolve this matter, and I really personally needed some thinking time because there are pros and cons to it on both sides. And I was not completely sure, although my initial response was certainly we should not discriminate on basis of genetics in providing insurance. But then again, is it really fair to the rest of the members of an insurance pool? And at this time, I was not ready. And actually, I had given my word to our industry friends that I want you to work with me over the next couple years and let us, year or two, to let us develop a model that is suitable to them. Only one state, Florida, has done so yet. So we are fairly ahead in the game. No other state has actually developed a model like this. They have developed model, passed legislation along the lines of genetic information privacy from third-party testers, but not essentially from any gene testing done, genetic testing done that is part of your medical records. So those things have not been done, and I really thought it was early. And although I wanted to bring it up for discussion, I was not going to ask for a vote, and I declared that before I presented this bill. And I thank you for your interest, and let us work together and let us see over the next a year or two how things develop as we see the landscape in Florida. What effect has it had? Has it really helped people get insurance, made it more accessible, or what the results are? Thank you.
Representative Freeman.
Chairman, thank you. And I just, I've said my piece. I would like to see us vote on it, but I understand, and I certainly appreciate and commend your sticking to your word. So I will honor that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question from Representative Lafferty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's proper, I was just going to make a motion to adjourn.
We're in session. I forgot. I am confused. Yes, we're in session. So yes, that is proper. We are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
This bill has been taken off notice.